William Barrett tapped his fingers on the steering wheel of his expensive car. The blue lights flashing behind him made him angry, not worried. As an important politician from a rich area, William didn't like being stopped by anyone. Officer Thomas. Freeman walked to the car calmly and professionally. Thomas was 42 years old and had been a police officer for 15 years. He had never been in trouble at work and always tried to treat everyone the same way, no matter who they were. "Good afternoon, sir. You were driving too fast in a school area. Can I see your license and car papers, please?" Thomas asked nicely. William looked at Officer Freeman with anger. "Don't you know who I am? I don't have time for this." "Yes, sir. I know you're MP Barrett, but the law's the same for everyone. The speed limit near schools keeps children safe." William picked up his phone angrily. "I'm going to call your boss about this. I've talked before about problems with people like you having power, and this shows I'm right. You people always try to show off the little power you have." Thomas stayed calm, even though William's words hurt him. He had heard comments like this before, but never from someone so powerful. William wouldn't give Thomas his papers at first. Instead, he recorded the conversation on his phone and said many rude things about Thomas's race and his job skills. "This will be great for my next talk about changing the police," William said with a mean smile as he finally gave Thomas his license. Thomas finished the traffic stop properly. He gave William a ticket, even though William had threatened and insulted him. As he watched the expensive car drive away, Thomas wondered how someone with so much hate could be in charge of making laws. That night, William posted a changed version of the video online. He made it look like he was the victim and that the police officer had been unfair to him. William's supporters believed him and started calling Thomas's police station to complain about him. The next day, Thomas went to work, feeling worried. His boss, Chief Robert Wilson, called him into his office. "I've had 50 calls this morning about you, Thomas. What happened yesterday?" Thomas explained the truth. "I was just doing my job, sir. MP Barrett was driving 45 in a 20-mile school zone. When I tried to give him a ticket, he became very rude and said some very racist things." Chief Wilson nodded slowly. "I believe you, Freeman. You've never given us any trouble, but this is getting messy." That video he posted has gone all over the internet. At home that evening, Thomas tried to stay strong for his family. His wife Jane put her hand on his shoulder. "The kids heard something at school today about you. They're confused." Thomas closed his eyes briefly. "I'll talk to them. They need to understand that sometimes people can be unfair, but we still do what's right." He sat down with his children, Emily and Michael, and explained in simple terms what had happened. "A man I gave a ticket to wasn't happy about it. He said some unkind things and put a video online that doesn't show the whole truth." "Is that why Mrs. Potter looked at us funny today?" Emily asked. "Billy in my class said his dad says you're in big trouble." Thomas hugged his daughter. "I'm not in trouble, sweetheart. I did my job correctly. Sometimes doing the right thing isn't easy." Meanwhile, William sat in his large home office, reading supportive messages from his followers. His assistant Oliver stood nervously at the door. "Sir, the video has over 100,000 views now, but there might be a problem." William looked up, frowning. "What problem?" "The shop across from where you were pulled over has a security camera. It recorded everything, including what you said to the officer. The shop owner is a friend of Officer Freeman. She's threatening to release the full video." William's face paled. The unedited video would show everyone how he had really behaved. It would show the racist comments he had made, the threats, everything he had tried to hide in his edited version. "Buy the footage," William ordered, "whatever it costs." But it was too late. Martha Lloyd, the shop owner, had already shared the full video with the local news. By morning, both videos would be playing side by side on every news channel in the country. William Barrett's true character would be revealed to everyone. That night, Thomas slept peacefully, unaware that the truth would soon come out. He had done what was right even when it was hard, and sometimes that was enough. The morning after the traffic stop, William's edited video spread quickly online. He had cut out his own rude words and only showed parts where he looked calm. The video made Thomas look unfair and aggressive. "Another example of police harassment against public servants," William wrote above his post. "This officer targeted me because of who I am." William's many followers shared the video thousands of times. News websites picked up the story with headlines like MP Barrett claims police harassment and politician questions police conduct. At the police station, Thomas's phone wouldn't stop ringing. Other officers gave him worried looks as he walked to his desk. "My cousin saw that video," said Jack, another officer. "It doesn't look good, mate," Thomas sighed. "It's not what happened. He cut out all the parts where he was rude and said racist things to me." Chief Wilson called an emergency meeting. The room was tense as 20 officers gathered around the conference table. "The mayor's office has called 3 times this morning," Chief Wilson said. "MP Barrett has a lot of powerful friends. They want us to apologize and punish Officer Freeman." "But, sir," Officer Linda Moore spoke up, "Thomas is our best officer. Everyone knows he wouldn't harass anyone." Chief Wilson nodded. "I know. That's why we're not giving in to pressure. We stand by our officer." While the police department supported, Thomas' life outside work became difficult. People recognized him at the grocery store and whispered. Some parents at his children's school stopped talking to his wife Jane. Emily, his daughter, came home crying because a classmate said her father was a bully. "I don't understand, Dad," Emily said that evening. "Why can't you just tell everyone the truth?" Thomas hugged her. "Sometimes people believe what they want to believe, sweetheart. The truth usually comes out in the end." The next day, Martha Lloyd watched the news in her small shop across from where the traffic stop had happened. She frowned as they showed William's edited video again. "That's not what happened at all," she said to her employee Ben. "I saw the whole thing from my window. That politician was horrible to Officer Freeman." Ben pointed to the security camera above the door. "Didn't that record everything?" Martha's eyes widened. "You're right, we need to check the footage." They rewound the security tape and found the entire encounter. Unlike William's selectively edited video, the security footage showed everything. William's angry face, his refusal to provide his license, and the terrible racist words he had said to Thomas. "We need to share this," Martha said. "Officer Freeman helped my mother last winter when her car broke down in the snow. He's a good man." Martha called the police station and spoke to Chief Wilson. Within hours, the unedited security footage was in the hands of the local news. That evening, the main news program began with a serious announcement. "Breaking news tonight as new footage emerges in the Barrett-Freeman police controversy. Viewers should be warned that the following video contains offensive language." Millions watched as William's true behavior was revealed. People saw how patient Thomas had remained despite William's racist insults. They heard William threaten Thomas's job and mock his race. By morning, public opinion had completely changed. William's political party issued a statement saying they were deeply concerned by his behavior. Newspapers that had criticized Thomas now praised his professionalism. Social media filled with messages supporting him. Despite the vindication, Thomas didn't celebrate. He went to work as usual, responded to calls, and helped people in his community. When reporters tried to interview him, he politely declined. "I'm just doing my job," he told them. "That's all I've ever done." At home, Jane noticed her husband seemed tired. "You should be happy, Tom. Everyone knows the truth now." Thomas shook his head. "It's not about winning. It's sad that someone with so much power uses it to hurt people. Nothing good comes from hate." Meanwhile, William Barrett faced the biggest crisis of his career. His office phone rang constantly, with angry calls. Journalists camped outside his house. His political allies stopped returning his messages. "This will blow over," William told his assistant Oliver. "People have short memories." Oliver wasn't so sure. "Sir, the party chairman wants to meet with you tomorrow. And 3 of your biggest donors have pulled their support." William slammed his fist on the desk. "Find out who released that security footage. I want to know who's responsible for this." But William's anger couldn't change what had happened. The truth was out, and people had seen his real character. In the following days, William tried to defend himself. He claimed the security footage had been altered. He said his words were taken out of context. Few believed him. Thomas continued his duties, treating everyone with the same respect, even those who had criticized him days earlier. His children reported that friends at school were being nice again. Neighbors stopped by with cakes and cards. To show support. You're a hero now, Jack told him at the station. Thomas shook his head. I'm no hero, I'm just someone who tries to do what's right, even when it's hard. Neither man knew that their paths would cross again soon, in a way neither could have expected. Rain fell heavily that night, 3 weeks after the video incident. The roads were wet and slippery. Rebecca Wilson drove carefully, but her small car was not good in bad weather. She was 19 years old, a university student coming home from a study group. As her car went around a curve on the country road, the tires lost their grip. Rebecca tried to control the car, but it slid off the road and hit a tree. The crash wasn't very fast, but it was enough to hurt her. The front of her car crumpled, and Rebecca hit her head on the steering wheel. Blood trickled down her face. She felt dizzy, but managed to reach her phone. With shaking fingers, she called for help. "Emergency services. What's your emergency?" a voice answered. "I've had an accident," Rebecca said weakly. "My car. I hit a tree." She tried to tell them where she was before everything went black. At the police station, Thomas was finishing his paperwork. It was almost the end of his shift, and he was thinking about going home to his family. The radio crackled to life. "Car accident reported on Oakwood Road. Driver injured and possibly unconscious. Any units in the area?" Thomas picked up his radio. "This is Officer Freeman. I'm about 5 minutes from there. I'll respond." "Copy that, Officer Freeman. Ambulance is on the way, but 15 minutes out. You'll be first on scene." Thomas grabbed his emergency kit and ran to his police car. He turned on the lights and siren and drove quickly through the rain. When he reached the accident site, he saw the car against the tree. The front was badly damaged, and he could see someone slumped in the driver's seat. He rushed to the car, rain soaking his uniform. Inside was a young woman with dark hair. Blood covered part of her face from a cut on her forehead. Thomas checked her pulse. It was weak but steady. "Miss?" "Can you hear me?" Thomas called, gently shaking her shoulder. The young woman's eyes fluttered but didn't open. Thomas noticed her breathing was becoming strange. He carefully supported her neck and made sure her airway stayed open. He used his jacket to cover her and stop her from getting cold, which could make her injuries worse. Thomas radioed for an update on the ambulance. "Dispatch, what's the ETA on medical? The victim is unconscious with a head injury and possible internal injuries. Her breathing is becoming labored. Ambulance is still 10 minutes out, Officer Freeman." Thomas knew he couldn't wait. The young woman's breathing was getting worse. He used his emergency training to help her breathe better, carefully positioning her and using special techniques he had learned in first aid training. He stayed with her, talking softly, even though she couldn't hear him, until finally, the ambulance arrived. Female, approximately 19 years old, unconscious after vehicle collision with a tree, Thomas told the paramedics. Possible head trauma and internal injuries. Her ID says her name is Rebecca Wilson. The paramedics worked quickly, putting Rebecca on a stretcher and into the ambulance. Thomas followed them to the hospital in his police car. He needed to complete an accident report, and he wanted to make sure she would be okay. At the hospital, Thomas sat in the waiting room, his uniform still wet from the rain. He was filling out his report when a commotion at the reception desk caught his attention. A man in an expensive coat was speaking urgently to the receptionist. "Rebecca Barrett," he said, his voice shaking. "I'm her father. I was called about an accident." Thomas looked up, recognizing the voice immediately. It was William Barrett, the politician who had insulted him and tried to ruin his reputation. Thomas was confused. The girl's ID had said Wilson, not Barrett. The receptionist checked her computer. "Yes, Rebecca Wilson. She was brought in 20 minutes ago. The doctor is with her now." "Wilson is her mother's name. She uses it since the divorce," William explained. "Please, can I see her?" The receptionist directed William to the waiting area, and that's when he saw Thomas. William stopped walking, his face showing shock. "You," William said quietly, recognizing the officer. Thomas stood up, also surprised. "Mr. Barrett, I didn't realize Rebecca is your daughter." They stared at each other for a long moment. The tension from their past encounter filled the air between them. Before either man could say more, a doctor in scrubs approached them. "Mr. Barrett, I'm Dr. James, treating your daughter." "How is she?" William asked, his voice breaking with worry. "She's stable now," Dr. James said. "She has a concussion and 2 broken ribs, plus some cuts and bruises. But it could have been much worse. The officer's quick action at the scene was crucial. Her breathing was compromised, and his emergency response kept her stable until the ambulance arrived. Without his help, her condition could have become critical." William turned to look at Thomas, his face showing confusion and disbelief. The man he had insulted, the man whose career he had tried to destroy, had saved his daughter's life. Thomas picked up his wet jacket and report papers. He didn't want to make the situation more uncomfortable. "I hope she recovers quickly," Thomas said quietly as he walked past William. William opened his mouth but couldn't find any words. He watched as Thomas walked away down the hospital corridor. Alone in the waiting room, William sat down heavily in a plastic chair. His hands were shaking. The doctor had said Thomas saved Rebecca's life. What would have happened if Thomas had ignored the call? After all, William had been horrible to him. No one would have blamed Thomas if he had let another officer handle the accident, but he didn't. He went to help, not knowing who was in the car. He did his job with care and skill, the same way he had done his job during the traffic stop. For the first time, William felt ashamed. Not the public shame of being caught saying racist things on camera, but a deep personal shame about who he was as a person. His hands still trembling, William covered his face and began to cry quietly in the empty waiting room. Outside in the parking lot, Thomas sat in his police car for a moment before driving away. He thought about William's face when he realized what had happened. Thomas didn't feel happy or vindicated. He just felt tired and sad that it had taken something like this to make William see him as a human being. Rebecca stayed in the hospital for 5 days. William visited her every day, sitting beside her bed and holding her hand. She was getting better slowly, the color returning to her face. "Dad, you seem different," Rebecca said on the 3rd day. "You're quieter." William smiled sadly. "I've been thinking a lot, about life, about people." Rebecca looked at him curiously but didn't ask more questions. She was too tired. Later that day, Patricia, William's ex-wife, came to visit. They stood in the hallway outside Rebecca's room while she slept. "The doctor told me about the police officer," Patricia said, "the one who helped her at the accident." William looked down at his shoes. "It was Officer Freeman, the same one from that traffic incident." Patricia's eyes widened. "The one you were so terrible to? The one you tried to get fired?" William nodded, shame evident on his face. He could have ignored the call when he saw our address. After what I said about him, no one would have blamed him. "That's the difference between you two," Patricia replied gently. "He sees people, William. You only see categories." Those words stayed with William long after Patricia left. That night he couldn't sleep. He thought about his life, his career, the things he had said and done. He had always been so sure he was right. Now, he wasn't sure of anything. A week later, Rebecca went home to stay with her mother while she recovered. William returned to his empty house. He sat in his study and looked at his phone. The edited video he had posted was still there. With a deep breath, he deleted it and wrote a new post. "I need to set the record straight. The video I shared was dishonest. I behaved badly and said terrible things to Officer Freeman. I am deeply sorry." The next day, his phone rang constantly. His assistant, Oliver, was shocked. "Sir, people are asking for comments about your post. The party leaders want to speak with you urgently." "Tell them I'll call back," William said. Instead of returning those calls, William did something he had never done before. He drove to the community center in the part of town he usually avoided. Mary Collins, the center's director, was surprised to see him at the door. "Mr. Barrett, can I help you?" "I'd like to talk if you have time," William said humbly. "I need to understand a lot of things." Mary hesitated but invited him in. For 2 hours, William listened as she explained the challenges faced by people in her community. He asked questions and took notes. Before he left, he asked if he could return. Over the next weeks, William met with many people. He visited David Thompson, a pastor who had criticized William's racist comments on TV. He talked with teachers, nurses, and factory workers, people he had never really listened to before. "I've been wrong," William admitted during a difficult meeting with community leaders. "I've built my career on fears and prejudices I never questioned. Some people were suspicious of William's change. Others were cautiously hopeful. William, I didn't blame them for doubting him. He knew trust had to be earned." Meanwhile, Thomas Freeman continued his work as a police officer. The video incident was mostly forgotten, though sometimes a fellow officer would mention that politician you stood up to. Thomas always changed the subject. He didn't like being known for that moment. One quiet Tuesday afternoon, Thomas was finishing reports when his desk phone rang. "Officer Freeman, there's someone here to see you," said the front desk officer. "Says it's important." Thomas walked to the lobby, wondering who needed him. He stopped in surprise when he saw William Barrett standing awkwardly by the reception desk. William was holding a small envelope and looked nervous, very different from the angry, confident man who had insulted Thomas weeks ago. Several officers nearby watched with interest. Everyone at the station knew the story. "Officer Freeman," William began, his voice quieter than usual, "thank you for seeing me. I've come to apologize, not for publicity or political gain. There are no cameras here. I need to acknowledge the harm I've caused you and your family." Thomas didn't speak. He wasn't sure what to say. Part of him wanted to tell William to leave, but another part saw something different in the man's eyes. "Would you like to talk somewhere more private?" Thomas asked finally. They went to a small meeting room. William sat down, his hands not quite steady. "My words and actions were inexcusable," William continued. "I don't expect forgiveness, but I needed you to know that meeting you, especially under those circumstances at the hospital, has changed something fundamental in me." William placed the envelope on the table between them. "This isn't money. I wouldn't insult you like that. It's a letter for your children, an apology for the trouble they faced because of me." Thomas looked at the envelope but didn't take it yet. "Why now, Mr. Barrett? It's been weeks. I needed time to understand what happened to me. At first I was just shocked and grateful that you saved Rebecca, but then I realized I needed to change, not just say sorry." William paused. "I've spent my life judging people without knowing them. I've said terrible things about people like you without ever listening to people like you." Thomas studied William's face. He had seen many people pretend to be sorry when they were caught doing wrong things. This felt different. "Have you ever had a moment when you suddenly see yourself clearly?" William asked. "When all your excuses fall away and you see the truth about who you are?" "That happened to me in that hospital when the doctor told me you saved my daughter." Thomas nodded slowly. "I think we all have moments like that, Mr. Barrett. The question is what we do afterward." "That's why I'm here," William said. "This is what I'm doing afterward. Starting with you, but not ending with you." Thomas finally reached for the envelope. He didn't open it, but held it carefully. "Thank you for coming. It couldn't have been easy." "It wasn't," William admitted. "But it was necessary. For me, even more than for you." As William stood to leave, Thomas asked one more question. "How is Rebecca?" William's face softened. "Getting better every day. She wants to meet you, properly to thank you herself." "I'd like that," Thomas said. And he meant it. The community center on Pine Street was full of people. Every chair was taken and more people stood along the walls. They had come to hear William Barrett speak. Many were surprised he was there. This part of town had never seen him before, except maybe during election campaigns when he made quick visits. "Why is he really here?" a woman whispered to her friend. "Is this just for show?" The room grew quiet as William walked to the front. He looked different from his TV appearances. His expensive suit was gone, replaced by simple clothes. He seemed less proud, more human. "Thank you all for coming today," William began. His voice was steady but humble. "For too long I've used my position to divide rather than unite. I stand before you not as a politician looking for votes, but as a man who has made many mistakes." Near the back of the room, Thomas Freeman sat with his wife Jane. They had received a personal invitation from William. Thomas wasn't sure about coming, but Jane had encouraged him. "I think you should hear what he has to say," she had told him that morning. William continued speaking. 6 months ago, I thought I knew everything. I made judgments about people I had never met. I used my power to push ideas that hurt communities like this one." He paused, looking around the room. Then something happened that changed me. Many of you know the story. My daughter had a car accident. The person who saved her life was someone I had treated terribly, Officer Thomas Freeman. People turned to look at Thomas. He sat straighter, but kept his face calm. That night changed how I see the world, William said. Since then, I've been meeting with people throughout our community. I've been listening more than talking. I've been learning. William then explained his new plans. He wanted to help the community center get more money. He wanted to support small businesses in the area. He talked about working with the police department to build better relationships with the community. 1. Apology cannot erase years of harmful words, William admitted. True change needs hard work every day. Today I'm proud to announce the creation of the Freeman Scholarship Fund for young people who want careers in public service. It's named after a man whose honesty and goodness taught me the most important lesson of my life. Surprised whispers spread through the room. Thomas looked down, uncomfortable with the attention. Jane squeezed his hand. After William finished speaking, people gathered in small groups. Some were still doubtful about William's change. Others seemed hopeful. "Do you think he means it?" an older man asked his neighbor. "Time will tell," she answered. "Words are easy. Let's see what he actually does." William made his way through the crowd, talking to people, listening to their concerns. Finally, he reached Thomas and Jane. The scholarship was a surprise. Thomas said, "Not quite sure what else to say." William shook his head. "It's not about getting attention, it's about making something good from my mistakes. Your example changed me, Officer Freeman. I want others to have the chance to learn the values you live by." Thomas thought for a moment, then offered his hand. It wasn't complete forgiveness, but it was an acknowledgement of William's efforts to change. As they shook hands, a photographer from the local paper took a picture. "Mind if I use this?" The photographer asked. Both men nodded, though Thomas looked uncomfortable with the publicity. The next week, that photograph appeared in the newspaper next to a story about William's new policies. The article discussed how William was now supporting programs he had previously opposed. He was working with community leaders he had once criticized. Some political experts said it was just a clever move to save his career after the video scandal. Others pointed out that William had been consistent in his new approach since the night of his daughter's accident. Rebecca, now fully recovered, had started volunteering at a youth center. "Dad's different now," she told a friend. "He's happier, actually, more at peace." For William, what people thought about him had become less important than doing what he believed was right. The compass inside him had changed direction, pointing toward kindness and understanding rather than fear and division. For Thomas, life continued much as before. He still patrolled the same streets, helped the same people, did his job with the same quiet dignity. But the experience had strengthened what he had always believed, that people could change when they truly saw others as human beings. One evening, as Thomas and Jane had dinner, she asked him, "Do you think he's really changed? William Barrett, I mean." Thomas considered the question carefully. "I think he's learning that becoming a better person isn't something that happens all at once. It's a journey that needs new choices every day." As winter turned to spring, both men continued on their separate paths, Thomas protecting his community, William working to better represent all people in it. They weren't close friends, but they shared a connection and an understanding. True strength isn't found in power or position, but in the courage to grow and change. The Freeman Scholarship's first awards were given that spring to 3 young students. Thomas attended the ceremony and spoke briefly about public service. As he looked out at the young faces, full of hope and possibility, he thought that perhaps some good had come from that rainy day when he had pulled over William Barrett's car. Sometimes the most important journeys begin with a simple traffic stop on an ordinary day.